Welcome to the BackPageLead Vidcast, and as usual, we welcome Wayne Carey. How are you, mate?
Good, Charlie.
I don't think either of us picked Essendon to beat Geelong, did we?
No, I don't think anyone did. It was
not even the most die-hard Bomber.
No, and even you've got to give credit where credit's due. The Bombers really tied them up. They played good pressure footy, and you'd have to say that the Bomber Thompson. I didn't think it'd have that big an effect, but obviously he knows Geelong back to front, knows their players inside out, and you'd have to say that it worked to the Bombers' advantage because they really closed them down.
Matthew Scarlett had next to no influence, and they placed Andrew Welsh on him. I think Jimmy Bartell was very quiet as well. Brad Ottens, I don't know, do you put that down to the intelligence of the...
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit of that. Maybe they just had off days. Welsh started well very early, as you just said.
Yep.
But look, the Bombers were just good all over the ground. Their pressure and as we know, and look, it's a pretty simple game when you think that when you pressure like that, doesn't matter who you got on the park. And the Cats probably had their equal to their best side for the year on the ground, and weren't able to beat the Bombers. So. A little bit above the shoulders, I think, but certainly all credit must go to the Bombers. Their pressure was second to none on the weekend, and they thoroughly deserved the win. Even in saying that, watching the game, and I watched it fairly closely, you still thought the Cats were going to get up. I thought that they might have pinched it, but to the Bombers' credit, they were able to hang on.
It begs the question, though, where have they been the last 6 weeks? I mean, they've lost to some teams in the bottom third of the ladder, and yet they come out and produce a performance like this against the unbeaten.
Well, I think like James Hird said at the start of the year when they won those few games and everyone was getting carried away, they're going to have their inconsistencies, they're going to have their flat patches. They are a young list, so there are going to be ups and downs, not unlike Melbourne at the moment, who are very disappointing again on the weekend.
Yeah, so you still think Essendon probably miss out on the 8?
Yeah, I still think the Bombers will miss the 8. Obviously, St Kilda winning on the weekend. All of a sudden they're back in the mix. Obviously the Bulldogs are still around the mark. The Kangaroos, they're probably the 3 sides outside that I think can maybe sneak into that 8.
Tell me about the Geelong forward line, which can look, when it's not firing, can look really impotent. And when Podsiadly's not taking marks, they rely on Steve Johnson and the Crummers. They just don't have as potent a looking forward line as Collingwood or Carlton or Hawthorn, I would have thought.
Oh no, well they haven't probably a superstar like the Hawks do, and unless Dawes and Cloak are a formidable combination. So no, they don't have that. But as you said, Stevie Johnson, Chapman, Bartell can bob up and kick goals. They've got different avenues to goal, which sometimes can be a great strength. Your reliance on any one player. Sometimes can run deep. I mean, if Buddy Franklin doesn't have a big game, we see that sometimes the Hawks really struggle. So it is a strength to have that many avenues. I did notice on the weekend Cam Mooney played a really good game, and so did Tom Hawkins. So they're good signs for the Cats. I'm sure either one of those will probably come in next week, given that they lost, and also they probably need a big target.
Well, it's a big game. They play West Coast over in Perth. I think it's Friday night. It's early doors, but how do you see it sort of panning out?
Well, that's the catch-22 about those big forwards. Yeah. I mean, if Cam Mooney and Hawkins have the fitness at the moment to be able to run, it's the best ground in the world to play on if you're a key forward, if you can run. If you can't run and you're a bit stagnant or you don't have the fitness base. From what I believe, Cam Mooney's slowly working into some fitness, hence the good form. But if you can't run, no point, because it's just a fantastic ground to play on if you can run into those open spaces as a forward. Very hard for a defender. Hence, that's why we're seeing West Coast obviously play the ground so well. They're 2 big key forwards playing terrific footy. This is now a really big game. You'd have to say West Coast. I mean, I know Geelong have only lost the 1 game, but over there. You'd nearly give West Coast the favouritism in the game.
I reckon you would too.
It's going to be that'll be a beauty. Looking forward to watching it.
Did you obviously played against Glenn Jakovich and Ashley McIntosh there many times, and the size of the ground gives you room as a mobile forward to escape.
That does. Well, you've got so much. You can play traditional centre forward, full forward, and you've still got plenty of space. It really is about work rate on that ground.
Yep.
And right now, West Coast, excuse me, for obvious reasons, are playing it as well as anyone. But if you're prepared to work hard, you can get a lot of the ball, and hence, the Cats with their rotations through the midfield. It's going to be a classic game. I mean, your Bartells and those guys through the midfield for the Cats, and then obviously your Kerrs and Coxes and Embleys and all those guys for West Coast are in great form. So it's going to be a very intriguing battle.
We agree though, West Coast by a goal or two?
Yeah, I mean, it is only early in the week, but I'm favouring West Coast, the fact that it's in Perth, and the Cats maybe just going through. I know once again it's only the one loss, but maybe just having a little flat spot.
Yep. Can Hawthorn win the flag? And I asked that question after they were beaten pretty comprehensively by Collingwood at the weekend. We mentioned their forward line. Buddy's up there on his own now without Roughhead. How do you see
these guys? Do Hawthorn and Collingwood meet again? I think they meet in the last round.
I'd need to take that question on notice.
I don't know.
From our researcher.
Maybe not.
No, Liam.
So it's a Collingwood-Geelong game. So that's an intriguing battle in itself. But back to Hawthorn. Hawthorn can win the flag, no doubt. If they, they've got the capabilities of winning the flag, just as they did in 08. I think they showed that, in form at the right time of the year. They dethroned the great Cats, who we thought couldn't get beaten in that grand final. So they're definitely capable. I still think there's 4 or 5 sides capable of winning the flag. Right now, though, Collingwood are certainly the measuring stick, no doubt, as they have been all year. 3
of the teams with pretensions, finals aspirations, on the cusp of the finals before the weekend: Melbourne, Richmond and Kangas. Melbourne and Richmond suffered pretty bad losses, and the Kangas went down to St Kilda in a game they would have thought they could win. Just that erratic sort of form you get from young teams.
Well, Melbourne were just terrible. Melbourne were terrible. I thought that they'd won 2 in a row. We thought they may have turned the corner and showing a little bit more fight, a little bit more consistency, but then turned in a shocker. And as did the Tigers. I mean, I tipped the Blues to bounce back. I thought that they'd win, but to win in that manner, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. Not even I don't think KB predicted it anyway. I think he tipped the Tigers to win. So
Kevin Bartlett, that is.
Yeah. But look, the Blues very good, Tigers very disappointing, and that's why this. I think it's the Tigers, the Bombers this week. That becomes a massive game. For the Tigers to win a bit of respect back. They're old rivals. They're both big clubs. There'll be a big crowd there. The Bombers obviously losing a few in a row, having a win. And they'd be thinking that they could make the 8, obviously. So this is a big game for both clubs.
North, of course, lost to St Kilda, as we mentioned. St Kilda was a funny old game, and I went along to it. Got 2 or 3 goals ahead at half-time, the Saints, and then basically shut up shop. They were kicking backwards and sideways for much of the second half. I think they only got 1 goal in the second half. It was good enough to win, which tells you, which is not a good reflection on the Kangas' performance, but not an attractive brand of footy for me. And I mean, personally, I wouldn't cross the road to watch them. I wouldn't give them 2 bob. I think it's an ugly brand of footy.
I didn't mind the game, to be honest. I only watched it on TV, but I thought it was just a good battle. And I thought the Kangaroos had their opportunities, started well, were in the game. They were in the game. They were never out of the game, I don't think. Had their chances in the last quarter. But you're right, St Kilda really closed the game down. It's a real defensive game again from St Kilda. I think the biggest thing for the Saints was that they're good players all sort of playing good footy. Nick Riewoldt back into some form. Goddard, Dalsano played a very good game. So, they had their good players playing well, and they probably deserved to win. But I thought the Kangas were all right. I mean, I think the last 4 or 5 times they've played, the Saints have been absolutely pumped.
Yeah.
So there was an improved performance on those. They'll be disappointed they lost, no doubt, but I think they can take some positives from it.
It was interesting early on, just as a sideline, the Nick Riewoldt, until he got a couple of goals in the middle of the game. His first 3, he kicked one off his ankle and one off his shin and then another off his knee. And then at the other end you got Lindsay Thomas, who can't buy a goal either.
Yeah, he's got the yips, Lindsay. He missed. I don't think if you tried to miss the goals by that much, you couldn't. I mean, that was one of the worst shots for goal I'd seen. You're right. Look, Nick really. I thought Nick really worked hard. He obviously was getting his hands on it. Still, kicking's not fantastic. Probably the one disappointing thing with the Kangaroos was the constant kicking the ball to Drew Petrie and when he had 3 blokes on him, and they really didn't work that out all that well, the Kangas. They they had to find other targets, and they kept bombing it to Drew. Yes, he's been in great form, but you can't beat 3 guys, and he was up against at least 2 or 3 players every time the ball went into the forward line. So they have to come up with a strategy to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Let's talk about another issue, and that is the Herald-Sun ran an interesting series over the last week or so about the last 21 years of AFL football, and ran a survey about the best players, and they polled 20 or 30 people, luminaries in the game, didn't they? Tim Watson and so on, about their best 5 players, and Wayne Carey, comfortable number 1 ahead of Gary Ablett Senior. Was that something that you were chuffed about? It's not an award that they it's not really an award, but it's not a recognition that they give out every year. It was something that I suppose the AFL or Mike decided to do, and whenever something's been voted by your peers, that's humbling, and it is an honour in itself, because they're the very guys that you looked up to and you respect. So you respect their opinion, their, I suppose, educated opinions. So it was humbling to be named the number 1 player. Do you feel that the longer you spend out of the game, and you've been retired for 7 years now, that you kind of get forgotten about? All the talk is about the current crop of players and how brilliant they are, and is Jonathan Brown the best centre half forward who's ever played? I mean, do you feel that former players get swept under the carpet, or their reputations do, a bit easily? Well,
I think the poll showed that the reputations, I suppose, haven't, because I think the only current day player in it was Chris Judd, who finished 6th in the poll. So I think all the players that voted on it, they had players that aren't currently playing. So it probably goes against what you're saying in terms of where they're regarded. But once again, it's an opinionated thing. I think I've had a few people over the weekend say, how did I leave Gary Ablett out of my 5, and he finished 2nd in the poll. I sort of base it a little bit, he was the most freakish player that I saw, but I base it a little bit more on the team aspect, and he's certainly one of the best players I ever saw. Very difficult job to do. You pick your top 5 players, it's not easy. I think I changed 5 or 6 times, and I'm sure the other guys had the same problems.
So the knock on Ablett, if there is one, as you say, is the fact that perhaps he didn't.
It wasn't about not winning a premiership.
No, it was bringing other people into the game.
I thought that's probably his only weakness. I mean, he was a freak.
Of course he was. And let's talk finally about the EJ Whitten match on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, which is your captaining, the All Stars. You're looking forward to getting back into a public arena, like it's at Etihad Stadium, and there'll be a crowd there, and it'll be a bit like old times, won't it? Slightly unfitter.
No. Well, the emphasis on the old, that everyone's out there. It's a little bit older, but look, it'll be good fun. I mean, it's all about raising some money, and for a great cause. And we can have a bit of fun while we're doing it. It's a great chance to catch up with blokes you played with and against, and mingle, before and after the game. So all in all, it should be a good night and good fun. And I know that all the boys enjoy playing in it. This is my first one, so it should be a bit of fun. I coached it for 2 years and enjoyed that. So this will be a little bit different.
Now, just quickly, what have you done to upset Aker? He didn't put you in his top 5 in the Herald-Sun poll, which seems a major oversight, and yet he's going to be your teammate tomorrow night.
Yeah,
you might have to run through him.
He is. I won't run through him. I'll just tell the coach Barmy to put him on the bench. But then again, if he hits me lace out a few times, then we'll be
forgiven.
We'll be mates again. No. Look, Aker's entitled to his opinion. We know his opinion's a little bit different to most. So if I was in his top 5, it'd probably be a little surprising, to be honest.
Very good. Good luck tomorrow night. It is a good cause, as you say, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Thanks Charlie. Cheers.